Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So today I want to talk a bit about bug out vehicles, namely the SUV or sport utility vehicle versus the good old pickup truck. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on which one is better for all around emergency preparedness situations. So let's get to it. Alright, so many of you, I'm probably going to be preaching to the choir in this video, and for the other half of you, potentially, you're going to hate me for making this video. Now, to absolve myself of some criticism, I will say that I have been a Jeep owner for around 9 years now. I had a 2004 Grand Cherokee, and I also had a 99 Grand Cherokee. And I drove the 99 Grand Cherokee over the 300,000 kilometer mark. It did end up having a lot of problems that I had to fix. I put a lot of money into it. The 04 hasn't been as bad. I haven't had as many major issues. Mind you, I only have about 200,000 K on that one. And I still have it, but I'm retiring it for a truck. And I'm going to provide you some of the reasons why. Now, I've always been of the persuasion that a sport utility vehicle was the ideal setup for a prepper, especially when you're talking about a bug-out vehicle. My perception was that due to its off-road capability, it was all around one of the best types of vehicles that you can have. And a lot of other people seem to follow this line of thinking. It seems to be the preferred bug-out vehicle of choice of most preppers. Now, some people, I got to throw an honorable mention in here for minivans. They're getting more attention. We also have a minivan in my family. I think it's a great gray man vehicle. I think a four-wheel drive minivan, as Nut and Fancy has suggested, is a fairly good vehicle. Although I don't think it's the ideal prepper vehicle he makes it out to be. Now, again, a lot of this depends on the conditions that you're using it in, on what the scenario is, on where you're going. But I think generally speaking, all around, a double cab, four-wheel drive truck is probably one of the best ways you can go. Now, there are pros and cons to both sport utility vehicles and pickup trucks. So let's first talk about the SUVs. Now, I think one of the reasons why this vehicle is so popular with preppers, because there is a sense of security knowing that all of your gear is contained under one roof and that nothing is sticking out or being exposed either to the elements or the eyes of others. There's some security knowing that you can lock stuff up in your vehicle, and that adds an extra level of protection from thieves or people who may be surveying what you got. Now, I think this is a valid point. There is a convenience to having all your stuff in the vehicle at once. Your ability to sleep in the vehicle is another neat thing, and the ability to just get up right away and drive away if the situation got sketchy. I mean, I slept in my Jeep many a night, especially in the back country where, there's a lot of wildlife in certain places. It's nice to know that you can just, turn the vehicle on if you need to. You can use the heat if it's cold outside, which wouldn't be the same if you were in the back of a pickup truck, unless, of course, it was modified and you were carrying a camper or something like that was set up to have a heat source. But basically, that's one of the big things with the SUV is your ability to be more secure within it. Now, you're not going to be secure from bullets and things of that nature. The bullets are going to penetrate whether you're in a truck or an SUV. So the idea that you're more secure from somebody shooting at you in an SUV is absolute fantasy. Now, there is a smaller wheelbase with SUVs, so they are going to be better rock crawlers. They're going to be better on the off-road. They are the ultimate off-road vehicle for a reason. Now, there are some trucks, of course, like the Ford F-150 Raptor, the Toyota Tacoma, the Colorado, a few others that are fairly reliable in a 4x4 off-road sense, but never going to be as reliable as a jacked up Jeep Wrangler, Rubicon, something like that. I mean, that for the most part is the Jeep's territory, and it's earned that right to be there. And of course, with an SUV, you may have a larger roof, so you are going to have the ability to put a roof rack up there. How much weight is going to be held on that is going to depend on the degree of customization. If you were like me and you just had a sport rack thrown up there, I think those are only going to be able to hold about 100 pounds. But if you weld it to the actual frame of the vehicle, of course, you're going to get more carrying capacity. I think the main benefit of the SUV is the concealed cargo aspect, the self-contained factor, the shelter factor, among other things, the smaller wheelbase, the better off-road capability. That's about it. Now, when we talk about trucks, there's a reason why farmers don't use SUVs. Now, I was talking to an old timer the other day, and he told me that they did actually used to use Jeeps on the farm a lot for getting from point A to point B. But by and large, most people use trucks. So the reason for this is pretty obvious. They're just more versatile. They can carry larger payloads. Typically, they have a greater towing capacity. I think my Jeep's towing capacity was around 6,500 pounds. And, that's okay. That's pretty good. Mind you, it's not as good as what some of the larger trucks are capable of. And because they're so versatile, you can throw anything on that bed that you want. You can put extra fuel. You could put a lot more gear. You could put a camper back there. You're not restricted to a certain size of material that you might be with an SUV. So I really do think that the trucks, in terms of the range that you're going to be able to get in terms of gas mileage, because you can only carry so many fuel canisters on an SUV without standing out like a sore thumb. I also think that a tricked out SUV is going to score far lower on the gray man factor. I mean, think about it. If you got a Jeep and there's, fuel canisters on the back, and it's all jacked up, and it's got, the winch in the front, loaded roof rack up top, lift kit, all that stuff, people are going to be asking questions. It's not as discreet, especially around here out west where I live, where everybody has a truck. Now, that's another thing. The gray man factor is going to be relative to the environment that you're in. So if you're in an environment where everybody drives an SUV and the bug out location you have in mind may have you going over a lot of treacherous terrain where there's a lot of narrow trails and stuff like that, which honestly is probably unlikely, but some people might have that in mind. I mean, that is a very real reality. If you're going into the deep back roads, the further and further you go off the beaten path, off the main roads, the narrower and narrower those roads are going to get. So indeed, yeah, it's good. I see the merit for having an SUV, but at the same time, I think that it's far more likely that if there was a disaster scenario, especially of the meteorological sort where it's an earthquake or a hurricane or something like that, you're going to want to load that truck up with as much of your family's belongings as possible to get out of Dodge. I really don't think there's a better get out of Dodge vehicle than a double cab 4x4 truck. If it's just you and one other person, then you might not need the double cab, but you might have neighbors or something like that, which the benefit of the double cab might come in. And if you ever wanted to sleep in the vehicle, that would be another thing that you might want to consider. Now, in terms of getting into the details of what particular truck you should get, I'm going to leave that up to you. That's a debate that could rage on for hours upon hours as to what the best truck is that you can get. I've been looking at a few different trucks. I've been looking at the Tacoma by Toyota. They're very reliable from what I hear. The newer ones are pretty flashy, but nonetheless, I do see a bit of potential there. Obviously, the Ford F-150s are a good all-around 4x4 vehicle, especially if you can get the Raptor version, which are pretty expensive as far as I know. But, maybe a worthy investment if you're going to use it on a regular basis. That's another thing. I think it's always good to have a truck around, especially if you're a quote-unquote homeowner and you have to, move things around and help people move stuff around. And if you like to work on different projects, you might be hauling stuff back and forth. There's just a lot of reasons to have a truck Not the best commuting vehicle, obviously, for fuel efficiency purposes, but because of the fact that a lot of these trucks have larger tanks or the capacity to have extra fuel tanks on them is a big plus. I think ideally you would have a convoy of several different types of vehicles, including a motorcycle of some sort, if you ever had to navigate very narrow corridors or go on short runs from a base camp or something like that. I think it's great to have a lot of variety within your convoy instead of just sticking to one thing, because chances are if you have family members, you're not just going to be by yourself. There's going to be a bunch of people in your party. So if you can structure it in such a way that you have access to a few different types of vehicles, then I think that would give you all the more adaptability and utility in the field that you could possibly need. So let me know what you guys think about the whole SUV versus truck thing. I'm sure I ruffled a few feathers with this one, but remember, I was a Jeep owner for 9 years and I still am a Jeep owner. I'm just considering making the move to a truck. Perhaps you can convince me otherwise. Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Canadian Prepper out. Check out the Canadian Preppers Network blog, an excellent resource for survivalists and preppers.